go into the general Q&A, and there's a Q&A slide that's going to come up. But thank you very much for a fantastic, very interesting, exciting presentation.
Thanks, Dermot.
I can read what it says here. So essentially, what we'd really like to do is to get those people that were involved in the presentations to actually unmute their mics so that they can get involved in this Q&A session. So we've got another about 10 to 15 minutes, I guess. So I'd like to ask people to put forward questions using the chat function if they have a question. But just to get started here, I suppose, was what do people think are the current barriers to effective CVD prevention locally, and whether the use of data, as we've heard today, might actually sort of overcome some of those barriers. Is on the...
Yeah, I'm happy to give my tuppence. Well, I think the main barrier for me is resource in primary care, because we know that a lot of the vast majority of interactions with patients are in primary care, not in secondary care. If you look at volume, and so if you want to look at opportunity in terms of volume, that would be a great place to start. But the resource is just so stretched. So I think the barrier for me is capacity, and therefore that leads us on to the next question of how can you be smart. And one way is what we've done, but there are lots of smart ways of trying to do large-scale QI. So for me, that's one. The second one is patient engagement. Really, certainly initially, we saw a lot of patients saying, "Well, I don't want anything done if I can't see you." And then if we tackle that correctly and smartly, then the overriding message we got was, "Oh, great! No, I want you to do something. Okay, I know I can't see the GP, I can't see the nurse, but can you do something? What can I do? What's the option?" And it's just talking about options and discussions.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, and if Martin's still on the line there, I mean, one of the things that strikes me here is that you've got a very effective intervention, and the biggest difficulty is actually getting a message across to a patient without the, if you like, luxury, maybe we could call it, of having an appointment to see the GP or the practice nurse for a kind of a face-to-face explanation. You know, so sending out letters to patients, I don't know about you, but I hate getting letters through the post from my GP surgery, because you're reading through all this stuff. Whether you actually might be better off if you did some like infographic elements in these letters so that patients immediately can see what it is about. Maybe that would be something could be used and to swing the argument with the patient. You know,
there's so many more things you could do. You could look at more fancy texts with hyperlinks. You could. A lot of people have got smartphones, regardless of what decade of age they're in. All sorts of things we could do.
I mean, certainly, I think that that many of the patients that I see find these official sort of letters a bit intimidating, and they very rarely manage to sort of read through everything and get it all right, unless they've been a former administrative assistant somewhere. So I think the infographics and the patient communications would be great, and I think obviously IT and electronic communications are going to be more important in future. So social media type of interactions could be useful. The difficulty, I suppose, is you know, it still has to be personalized and it has to be confidential. But if patients perhaps are encouraged to provide an email address so that they can be sent a link to patient education materials and so on. Heart UK, for instance, there's lots of great materials. We hand out a lot of printed versions of these in our clinics, and patients are delighted to have these. We have a very nice one that was made by one of the also with support of one of the companies a few years ago, which has got family trees and sort of diagrams of cross sections of atherosclerosis, and patients very quickly see, you know, what it is that our message is, and you know, that would be good. Any other questions anybody has? I'm looking at the chats here. There's just one's come in there. Was a tailored approach taken to certain ethnic minority communities?
No, we were quite, the only thing that we were very conscious of is language barriers. So the website was translated into 1,000,001 different languages. We tried to get videos that we did in some of the other minority languages, but not many volunteers came forward. So no, everybody was targeted equally according to risk factors, clinical profile, apart from language, which we tried to support as best we could in the time frames.
Did you look for feedback from patients to what they felt about, you know, being approached in this way and being given this advice without the, you know, the usual face-to-face?
So there are two types of feedback. Firstly, we got unsolicited feedback when patients came to the patient education evenings, and at the beginning, when the comms program was still starting, there was quite a lot of vigorous debate. Yeah. And patients were saying, well, why are you doing this? And then the more the comms message got through on the radio and newspapers and interviews and all this business, and I think as time went by, then the message very, very clearly changed into more, what are you doing, into, oh great, that's really interesting. Why have you not done this before?
Yeah, well, so that's interesting. I mean, I must say, you know, given that you know, your initiative was praised by the BMJ, which is perhaps more famous for moaning about you know, the potential adverse effects of statins, to say, whoa, you guys are great for getting more people started. That was a bit surprising. Possibly.
I know.
Maybe you were surprised.
It was very good. And the second way we got feedback was we asked the GPs, well, what kind of kickback have you had? And it varied from practice to practice. Obviously, it's not going to be the same, is it? But you know what? It's a lot less than you might think.
Yeah.
It went down fairly well.
Yeah, I think, you know, I often wondered whether, you know, you would get more people, if you like, demanding statins if you told them they couldn't have them. But maybe that's...
Certainly after the education evenings, if I did anything different, we would start that much sooner on a large scale. Patients would come to us and this, thank you, I'm now going to go back and have a chat. I really want to explore having a statin. I'm doing lifestyle. Don't bore me with lifestyle. I don't want you to talk to me about lifestyle.
Right.
Please talk to us about the science. And then afterwards they said, yeah, I'm going to go to my nurse and doctor and ask for this.
So I think there's a comment from Jules here. Jules, you can speak, you know, you can just unmute yourself.
Thank you. So yeah, it was interesting. I feel that Heart UK can actually, let me put my webcam on. So yeah, so Heart UK can help with the diet and lifestyle aspects, as well as and Yusuf, you haven't really mentioned in terms of any barriers of people not wanting to take statins because they don't want to be on it, but I think that's something else that we can very much help with in terms of the patient engagement. But I also wanted to see what the barriers from other CCGs are and whether there's anything that we can help with that from the other CCGs that are online, because clearly I think Yusuf's done an amazing job. I think Martin's method of using the fantastic ways he's demonstrated on communicating information is great, and I think using some of that with patients would be great as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed.
Would that help other CCGs? Dermot, I think you should throw it open to mics and get some
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not. I'd be happy for anybody who wants to unmic themselves to chip in. I mean, I suppose not all at once because it would probably be cacophonous. But anybody's a question want to put without having to sort of type into their keyboard with one finger, would be more than welcome to hear what they have to say. Jamie has said something. Hi, Dermot. Would you put a new slide up if you want to ask that question to the audience? Move on. Okay, so. Yes, anybody got any questions they want to throw in from the floor, so to speak, at this point? I mean, I must say I think both the presentations have been really interesting and have opened up lots of possibilities, some ideas about things we could do differently and how these approaches could be combined, and indeed the idea of having patient education, if you like, meetings to actually support these, I think is a fantastic opportunity for the likes of Heart UK, who could potentially, you know, get people involved from different areas who they know through the organisation are willing to come and speak to patients. I mean,
I wish we'd spoken to you at the start. That's one thing I regret, but we just didn't know that we should think that big, and that we should look at players like you on a national level who could help us locally.
Yeah.
What about?
Well, we're talking now, and that's important. I think that data is so important as well, and that data worries me because we're in a better place than we were with cholesterol, but obviously with the QOF measures being removed. And the majority of GPs not recording or not, maybe recording but not submitting the data, so that there's no national data around cholesterol, that does worry me. So I think we're moving slightly away from that now that it will be a requirement to measure certainly people with existing heart disease, which is always my biggest worry. And of course, prevention is what we're about. So this is a great prevention program, but you know, however CCGs want to do any kind of prevention, then I think, you know, that would be a great thing to do. And like you say, that's what today's all about, to see what can we do, what have we learned from all of this discussion, which I think is quite a bit, and you know, how can we help and support CCGs with any prevention program that they are doing.
Yeah, I'd absolutely endorse that. So that we're now coming up to after 10 to 7, so I just really want to summarize really what we've had so far. I think this has been very interesting and really stimulating set of presentations. I think we've seen a very tremendous demonstration of how the infographics approach can help summarize complex data and put it into a graphical format that can be readily understood and within reasonable sort of time frames that people have available for making decisions and commissioning meetings, etc. But not only that, I think you've also seen that these graphics approaches are powerful enough, I think, to lend themselves to changing the minds of patients about you know, how they view their own health and whether they want to participate in an intervention, because people not only in commissioning committee meetings or whatever are pressed for time, and if they can assimilate the information and so much more quickly, it's going to be a fantastic advantage. Youssef's presentation, I think, is great, and although I've been on record as saying forget, fire and forget, I think Youssef has possibly revived a way in which it can be used in a constructive way. And I think that possibly the most important thing here is the fire. I don't know about the forget, but I think certainly you know, doing something rather than sitting around waiting for the patients all to roll in, with a cardiovascular event is very important. So yes, being proactive about prevention is really, I think, the message here, and that if patients know you're interested or concerned about them, they are likely to respond. And it's not everybody, unfortunately, who's going to be able to be pulled in by their GP or practice nurse for a talking to. So I think this is a fantastic opportunity, and it does use the approaches of analysing the big data that is already available in the GP systems to find those people who most likely are going to benefit from getting started or optimizing their treatment, and also the possibility then for following up that to make sure that they've continued. So I think this has been great. I think that if we can have this material that Youssef has shared with us today, I think we can, as Peter Green, who's one of our participants, had put in his chat question, could it be put on the Heart UK website so it's available to be downloaded? I think that would be very helpful. Certainly a summary of the meeting today will be recorded and made available to colleagues who are interested to hear about that. Certainly from the point of view of Jules and Heart UK, I think she could hardly contain herself actually. I think it does open up lots of possibilities. But yeah, I think if patients can be involved in the decision making, as you've described at the end, just following your patient engagement meetings, I think that really does start to tick all the boxes. So I'd like to thank everybody who participated. I'd certainly like to thank, in particular, our excellent speakers for taking the time to put together these tremendous presentations. To get themselves set up with the IT and download the app and all that sort of stuff, because you're at a busy schedule. It's hard to get around to all this sort of thing. So a tremendous amount of effort has gone into making this happen, and I must say I'm very, very impressed with how well the system has worked, even if I'm pressing the wrong buttons all the time. And to say Youssef and Martin, I think congratulations on excellent presentations. And I suppose from Martin I wouldn't have expected anything less, but nevertheless they were both fantastic.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to Jamie Flaherty, who from Hanover has actually done all the legwork behind this to make sure it's all happened and everybody's turned up on time. And to Jules for facilitating the whole thing coming together. So I'm going to press some kind of button at this point which will sort of finish the meeting. But thank you all for your participation, for your contributions, and I hope what's been discussed this evening can lead to perhaps some momentum developing elsewhere in the country, and that CCGs with similar problems can implement these and make some real headway. Thank you very much.